Welcome to Not Just a Transaction, the podcast series hosted by experienced real estate authorities Nick Prefontaine and Zachary Beach. Each week, the hosts bring you expert guests to help you navigate the many creative options available for buying or selling a home, while cutting out the costly hurdles of a conventional real estate deal.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Not Just a Transaction podcast, where Nick, my co-host and brother-in-law, and not as good-looking one, discusses buyers. I talk about the sellers, Zachary Beach here, and we also bring in special guests to discuss why it's not just a transaction to them. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Zach, for that little segue, minus the part about how you're more handsome than me. Today, we'd like to welcome to the show Mike Makredes. Mike's has a business out in the California region where he helps buyers and sellers out there. So, Mike, we wanted to introduce you. Welcome to the show, and tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, first off, I want to thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it, and honored to be on the show.
You're welcome, Mike. You're welcome.
Yeah, so I'm based out of Fresno, California, which is the Central Valley, just in between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And I originally was in sales before. You know, I didn't come from a real estate background, so I started doing this, I would say, about actually 4 years to the date, almost here the next week. 4 years ago is when I first started my first real estate investing business. And I wanted to get into something where I would be able to scale, right? Work on my own, because I do have an entrepreneurial degree from Fresno State. So I eventually wanted to go full time into something on my own, and also wanted to help people, right? I wanted to be helping out there, helping the community, and at the same time building a business. So real estate brought me to the terms side of real estate, right? And building ever since, you know, for the last 4 years. I'm full time now since 2019, and loving every minute of it. So that's where we're at right now.
Well, awesome. Thank you again for coming on and sharing a little bit of your insight. I would say the number one thing, or one of the important things that we ask all the guests that we have on the show of Not Just a Transaction, is how you are affecting the lives of both buyers and sellers right now, today, in your business, as you see it, because everyone operates in a slightly different mode than everyone else.
Sure. Well, working in the terms real estate business, as I like to call it, we structure deals, right, where we're able to maximize the value in the property for the seller, and then we're able to get buyers in a home who financially can qualify, but just don't have all things, all their ducks in a row, if you like to say, call it, to walk into a bank and get the financing for the property. So we're kind of the middleman for both sides. We're able to sell the property for the seller without charging them any commissions or fees, and we do pay full market value. So they're able to really get the most out of their investment. And it's basically for those who just have a little bit of time on their side, on the seller side, you know, and then buyers, there's plenty of buyers out there. It's very difficult to walk into a bank now and get approved. So we're the middleman there to help bridge that gap, to give them a path to success and to become a homeowner. So we feel like we're doing good on both sides of the transaction, and that's what makes us feel good as a company.
Well said, Mike. I want to throw out a little clarification for anyone that's listening that you're a licensed realtor, we're not necessarily doing this as a service for sellers or for buyers.
Right.
We're getting equitable interest in the property and purchasing it, and then we're able to offer out this great program for buyers to give them a path to home ownership. So just wanted to give a little bit of clarity there. Now, my less handsome brother-in-law probably has a lot that he wants to add at this point, because he's been very quiet
You
up
can't
until this.
use the same joke as I use. That's
Well, no, it was
your own
different.
jokes.
It was different. You said better looking. I said handsome. They're
okay. I got it. You can be handsome, I'll be better looking. That's fine with me. Everybody wins. Mike, tell us, who are your ideal sellers that you work with, or who are your ideal buyers that you work with? Because I know you've been helping a lot of people throughout the state of California. So maybe start there, just in case somebody's listening here and they happen to be in California and they're like, oh, or they have a family in California and they say, hey, I need to make sure that, my friend, the seller who's struggling, can work with them.
Yeah, we work with a few different seller types. I feel like that our prototypical avatar that we like to deal with, right? That fit and check all the boxes. One would be a tired landlord, or somebody who has a second property who needs help selling it, and doesn't want to, get put through the ringer with all those commissions and fees, and doesn't want to have to deal with the buyers, right? We kind of handle all that. And then the other is somebody who needs to make a move, doesn't need their equity in the property. They could wait for it, and they have time on their side, right? So on the seller side, usually that's both of the types of sellers and the positions that they're in financially that I like to deal with. And then on the buyer side, it's basically those, like I said before, that financially have a good job, right? They have a job that can afford the property. That maybe they had a little hiccup in the past that they never really got to correct, or basically bring them back to the level where they should be. So whether it be something on their credit, or something within their taxes that they have to show more, right? Maybe if it's a buyer who's self-employed, who doesn't show as much on their taxes, then they need time to kind of have less expenses and write-offs. Yes, bring up the numbers there for the banks to approve their monthly income or yearly income. So all sorts of buyers. I feel like the ones that I'm running into are just are your normal families. The mother and father who just have their average jobs that are out there, and they're just trying to do the best for their families. And I feel like I've helped quite a few of those put the pieces to the puzzle in place, their ducks in a row, right? That's like I always like to say it, and get them to get qualified for a loan and become homeowners, right? Stop that renting cycle,
Mm-hmm.
And so those are my seller and buyer avatars, I like to call it.
Well, you're very methodical in your thinking. So I think that's why you're always saying the analogy of get your ducks in a row. Didn't you, now correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you come from a banking background before you were in the produce industry?
Yes, I was
Okay.
a personal banker before. Then I also worked, even before that, I was a finance manager at a dealership. It was a boat dealership out here in California, and so working with numbers and loans and things like that may have not have been with the home loans, but it's still kind of the same concept, right? You can kind of put it all together as far as what it takes to be approved,
Mm-hmm.
and the structure of the loan and how they're going to be able to afford it, and how you can make the whole deal work, right? Putting it all together. So I'm a numbers guy. From going all the way back to when I was a young kid, I always liked working with numbers. I loved math when I was younger. So all those things come pretty easy to me when structuring things and putting the numbers together. And then I went into sales in the produce industry for about 10 years after that. And then here I am today doing this full time.
And here you are today on the show.
That's right.
Well, Nick,
Nice.
you brought that he's very methodical. So not all of these transactions go smooth because we get asked this all the time, especially from the seller side, even the buyer side. It's like, what happens if everything doesn't work out the exact way you were planning on it working out? Mike, if somebody were to ask you that, like, what's your response? How do you handle maybe some diversity when it comes to being a real estate investor and making sure that all parties involved are more or less getting to the finish line?
Or
Right.
also adversity, not diversity.
One of those, adders. One of them.
Well, first off, I'd like to say that you don't panic right in the beginning. I know that, I mean, my first part or piece of adversity that hit me in the real estate side of
It's not
investing side,
Not diversity. You sure?
not diversity, adversity.
Okay.
The first piece of adversity that I dealt with in the beginning, I did panic because I didn't know how to react. In my previous job, everything had to be dealt with that moment, and you had to react quickly. In real estate, things happen a little bit slower, right? Things you get to like stand back, right? Take a step back and look at the big picture and plan out how you're going to handle it, right? And pivot is what we like to call it. So things will happen, but the way you structure things in the beginning and the way you put your contracts together and your agreements together on both sides, the seller and the buyer side, is really to protect you and put you in the best position if something were to happen, right? So let's just say, for instance, one of my first buyers defaulted right within the first 4 months, and they had to move out. I had to evict them from the property and resell the property. But we do require a non-refundable deposit at the time of the move-in, right? So that's usually a significant piece to the puzzle because that's our protection from anything happening during their period, right? Their rent to own or their lease period. So by getting that deposit, I put aside a good portion of it for any type of emergency. I say a good 40 to 50% I put aside just because it was one of my first deals. I didn't know how things were going to work out. I'm thankful I did that. I was in a good position to do that. Didn't need the money right away. So once they defaulted, I had to serve them their eviction, and I had to cover some payments, but I had that cash aside to handle that. Once they moved out, I replaced them with a new buyer, got a new down payment, which is all within our structure and terms that we deal with, and actually came up ahead. So going into it with the right plan and planning for something to happen like that, a negative thing to happen, will ease your mind and give you that comfort level where you'll be able to sleep at night if something were to happen, right? So it all happens in the beginning. I know some others that are in the business that didn't prepare correctly in the beginning, and they got themselves in a little pickle there, and they ended up losing quite a bit. So all starts from the structure in the beginning.
Exactly. And I think that's important that you mentioned that because is everything going to go smooth 100% of the time? No hiccups, and you go through the process and you just get to the end and you show up at the closing, you collect your check? No, that's not how life works. But when the unexpected happens, I think it's important for the listeners to understand that we're going to do the right thing. And still, if it gets to that point and you have to move on, yes, but we're going to do the right thing and give you every opportunity to go forward and buy the house. Like you were talking about, Mike, if they encounter a life event or something like that and their circumstances change dramatically, then obviously they don't want to go forward and purchase a home, but we're going to give our buyers every chance to do that moving forward. And I think wrapping it up, the last question that Zach and I wanted to ask you is, why is it not just a transaction for you? In other words, why do you give a shit? Why does it matter to you?
Well, first off, when I first started in the terms business, I knew that I was going to be helping both sides of the transaction in a financial way, right? But I didn't realize the type of impact I was going to have, mostly on the buyer side. I mean, I think the first few buyers, it really struck me when we signed the final documents in the kitchen there, on kitchen counter. And they started, the wife of the buyer, the husband and wife, the wife started crying, you know what I mean? And it really just, opened my eyes on how much of a difference I'm making in the community, and a positive impact I'm having on the community just by her reaction there. And, she gave me a hug in the end. She said, "You don't know how much you're changing our lives and our family. This is going to be so great." And, they actually closed on their house about 4 months ago. So they're, official homeowners on the title and have a loan on the property, going through our whole program. And I couldn't be happier for them. They're just a great family to work with. And they're on the right path now to their future, right? Being a homeowner. So that actually really impacted me. Going back to your question, sorry. So my second buyer, same thing. The seller actually was hearing our story on why we were doing what we do, and she actually kind of broke down. She says, "Yes, I want my house to go to a great family that needs just a little bit of help, right? Just a push in the right direction, to be on the right path, and to own their home, right? Instead of jumping around from apartment to apartment renting." So she was very moved by our program and how we're out there helping the community. And so I feel like on both sides of the transaction, they're positively impacting the community, and we feel good as a business doing what we do day in and day out.
Love it. Love it. That's why we bring our guests onto this show, to tell you that there are extremely good and well-intentioned real estate investors out there that are out there to help out both buyers and sellers get all the way to the finish line. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Not Just a Transaction podcast. If you're listening on iTunes or wherever else you can possibly listen to this, make sure that you go ahead and write a review, and we will see you next week, next Wednesday, on another episode. Have a fantastic hump day.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Not Just a Transaction. If you want to learn more on selling a home, buying a home, or resources to learn more, head on over to our website at originalre.com.